Morning.
Morning.
All right, I'm going to stand back here so I can look at notes. So it always throws me off a little bit when it's not panel driven because I'm going to try, I cuss like a sailor, so hopefully I won't do that today while I'm talking to you all. It might be the right group, who knows. Okay, so listen, 2020 was an odd year, and if you're like me, I'm kind of sick of talking about it. But if you look at the history and what we've gone through this year, there's a lot that we can learn from it. So listen, we all have been on Zoom meetings, right? We all started this year off where we were working from home and we were having to pivot and relook at what our businesses look like. So who had a dog bark this year on a call, or a baby on your lap, or a spouse that interrupted a call? So we sort of are playing on words here with bring your pets to work. So what we've heard this morning from some of the other speakers is the shakeup and change that's coming in 21, which is really exciting. But from a design perspective, how do we do that? So Banco Design is a full-service interior design firm out of Marietta. We are full design and also a procurement agency. The procurement agency that we have in-house is Red Pen Procurement. We're in 3 verticals. 70% of what we do is senior living. Another large portion of what we do is traditional multifamily, and then that third vertical is boutique hospitality. So we've seen a lot of integration in those verticals this year, and again, a lot of shakeup, which is really exciting because we feel like we're going to trailblaze what that looks like. But with all of this change and what these new models are going to look like, how do we accomplish that? So from our perspective, it's doing a little bit of a hard reset. And it's looking at how we take these projects and we really break them down, and we're having really serious conversation on the front end on how to make it work. So with bring your pets to work, the P is for process and program. Okay, so we have to bring everyone to the table. You have to build that design team, your construction team, your development team. Everyone has to sit at the table, and you have to talk about the process to get there. How are we going to do that efficiently? How are we going to do that smart? How are we going to save time and money and energy to get there? So let's all sit there and talk about what that process looks like. So putting your plan in motion, your timeline, your schedule, and your needed deliverables. I think that what 2020 has taught all of us is that communication is key. Let's just talk through it on the front end, right? So the process, we've got to walk through and set those steps. So bringing all the consultants to the table, when you should bring them in and what info do they need? How do we set everyone up for success? When this year, the virus hit, the first quarter of this year, as a business owner, we had to look and say, okay, how are we still going to push projects forward? How are we going to work from home? And we did that for a short amount of time. We've been back in the office as a studio since late March because we saw as a firm that we weren't able to really deliver the same level of deliverable without working together in the same space. So of course that was strategic, but we've been doing that because we saw it affect the process. Program, absolutely essential for keeping a project on schedule and on budget. Can it be done? Yes, it can if you are talking through it on the front end. So your design team, your architectural team, and your other consultants on a project really should understand your vertical. They should really understand what your goals are. They should intimately know from a senior living or a multifamily perspective, your operations side, from a hospitality perspective, same. If we don't understand what the goal is and what we're designing to, how can that project be successful? So E, experience and expectations. So experience, the value of hiring a specialist in your vertical. So what we did see in 2020 was we had lots of talk and chat about, okay, well this vertical maybe isn't doing so well, so I think that what we can do is we can shift to this vertical. Can't tell you how many calls I got from multifamily developers that said, senior living, it seems like it's a really great industry, it's doing really well, it's just multifamily for old people. It's not. And then we had hospitality guys call us and say, hey, listen, our hotels aren't doing really well. We think we're going to convert them to multifamily or senior living. Certainly we can do that and it's easy, right? No, it's not. But we can make it easy for you if you have the right consultants that know those verticals and can talk you through what that really looks like. So bring consultants to the table that know your vertical, they know your market, they know the right questions to ask on the front end, they make the process easy and seamless because they've done it before. Expectations, this is one of my favorite ones. What is the expectation of your end product? So we were talking about middle market, we were talking about target demographic. If you're not asking those questions during the design process, the project will be a fail because you're not designing the right product. We have to dive into numbers. Where do you want to be in rents in senior living? Where do you want to fall in the market? Let me design a product for you that's appropriate for what your end goal is. So the expectation of what the target demographic is, let's talk about that so that we can design the right building. So we're going to talk about comps, we're going to talk about goals, and budget. So something that we attack very early on at Banko, especially because we have the procurement arm in-house, is budget. It's vital. You can still have great design at any budget. It's not going to vary if you tell me your budget is here rather than here. We're going to be strategic about what we're specifying and what we're designing, but you have to have that crucial conversation up front about budget. And from a contractor's perspective, let me have that conversation with them really early on. Let's not segregate the consultants on the job, because if we can talk about that early, we're going to save time in the long run, so we're not having to do a huge VE effort, or we're way over, or even with lead times. Talk about what the budget is. Let me design a product that's appropriate for your budget. Talk and timing. So again, communication is key. It's been even more difficult in 2020 to communicate because you don't have the opportunity to say, hey, come into the office, let's really all sit down at the same table and chat it out. So we've really had to focus on that, to almost over communicate, to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Never assume. It makes an ass out of you and out of me. So we get into a lot of, well, I assume that so-and-so was doing that, or I assume that this is where you wanted to be, or I assume that you did want this as part of the program. Can't do that. You have to really make sure that everyone is on the same page. So talking is key. I think too, what we've learned this last year is the importance of humanizing the design process, and that everyone sitting at the table is bringing value, and how can we really work together as a full consulting team for the better of the project. This is not a finger pointing effort. This is not I'm smarter than you. This is not I can get that for a better price. What can we do as a team to work together to really benefit the project as a whole? Timing, also a favorite of mine. Let's be realistic about the amount of time needed to do things. So we've had ownership groups that asked us to push the gas and to really finish things as fast as we could. We had other groups that said, hey, let's push pause and maybe relook at that. But again, it's what is the expectation on timing. Hire a design team that can save you time and energy on the front end. We sort of touched on that earlier. What can we do to be strategic so that we're not doing things more than one time? That doesn't make sense for anyone. Schedule and scope. Who's doing what? Let's map that out in the beginning. Again, it comes down to timing. What is your expectation on when you need deliverables done? What is your expectation on when you need pricing? What is your expectation on when you want your building open? All of those things need to be mapped out on the front end for the success of the project as a whole. We hear all the time, how fast can you do that? How fast can you get the project done? It's like, I can do it really fast, but there's you, and there's a review time, and there's other consultants that need to be folded in and coordinated with. So again, it's mapping all of those different deliverables and milestones out. And then a big one is scope. Who's doing what? So on the design team, you have architecture, you have MEP, you have structural, you have design, you have landscape. Who is drawing what? Who's doing what? Because again, if I'm drawing something and architecture is also drawing something, that doesn't make any sense, and that's not efficient for the process as a whole. So mapping out who's doing what and when, so that those milestones can be hit and we can roll to the next part of the process. The other thing with scope that we run into quite a bit at Banko is because we are a purchasing agency and we're set up like a hospitality model, we are also purchasing things like decorative flooring and wall covering and tile and decorative lighting. So really over communicating with our build team of who's purchasing what and when those things are needed, so that that is a streamlined process during the build. Okay, so the fun stuff. So we've talked about these different verticals. We've talked about senior living and multifamily and hospitality and what that looks like in 21. And I wanted to focus on sort of that design process because, again, I think it's important that we do a little bit of a reset and really work together as an industry as a whole to be as successful as we can be in 21. So we get asked quite a bit, where do you see 21 going from your perspective in the design industry? And we absolutely do see a focus on health and wellness. So, well, you'll say, well, that makes sense because you're in the senior living space, and of course that is something that we know that senior living focuses on. But I think what you're going to see is a focus on that also in other verticals. And again, I can speak to multifamily and to hospitality. There is this concern about how we can integrate back the world safely, and how do we do that from a health and wellness perspective. So senior living specifically, I think that I've got a lot of groups that are saying we've got to redesign this whole thing. We can't have these wide open spaces anymore. How do we do that? Are you gonna take the building and redesign it all together? And the answer is no. There is a way to strategically bring our seniors together in these senior living communities without having to completely redesign them. But we do know that health and wellness is going to be a focus. I think you're going to see a focus on fitness. I think that's going to be a huge component in all verticals, especially senior living. I think you're going to see a focus on cleaner eating. So the F&B world is going to get, I think we'll have a shakeup. You're going to see obviously a focus on entry and what sort of visitation we have in senior living. But I think you will also see a focus on health and wellness in multifamily and hospitality as well, because the world is now focused on that. We want to be safe, we want to get back to normal, so how do we do that safely from a health and wellness perspective? Todd touched on middle market. That's definitely something that we're hearing a lot of chatter about and a lot of conversation about with jobs that are coming through the door for 21. That middle market, we say all the time at Banko that you can have great design at any budget, and we really do believe that. So again, it's having the conversation about what your goal is for that middle market project and how do we design specifically to that middle market. We have groups that bring us in even in due diligence. Hey, let's look at this property. We're thinking that this might be a great project for us. Can you come in and help us break down budget and what it would take to convert this, to renovate this, to reshape this? So we're happy to do that because we would much rather be able to set those budgets and expectations on the front end so that you can have a successful project. And so that middle market, there's definitely a need for that. Banko's done a lot and has designed quite a bit in that luxury space, and she's really pretty, but it isn't for everybody. So we know that we can help in that middle market too, again, with the strategy and the process that we have in place. And we're excited to see what 21 brings for that middle market. Work from anywhere spaces, obviously that's going to be part of sort of the shift with not only what we're doing as a design industry, but also in our communities, senior living. We're going to have adult children that are going to need the opportunity to be able to work from anywhere. Multifamily, we are constantly, even before the virus, it was the we work. What can we do to provide a space where residents in a multifamily community can have a place where they can use that work from home space. So I think that's going to continue to rise in 21. Outdoor spaces are huge, all three verticals. Even more important after 2020, but what do those outdoor spaces look like, and how do we get architecture, design, and landscape to all work together so you have a holistic design? So I think that you're going to see a big rise in focus on outdoor spaces. That's a great place for everybody to gather and to meet and to feel safe if they're not comfortable being in those indoor amenities. Design with purpose has always been a focus for us as a design firm, but I think there's going to be a dramatic focus on it in 21, and a question and a desire we'll get from our clients. So so that they know that their focus and again their expectation is being met within 3 of those verticals. Residential design. So Banco Design uses this word quite a bit. Residential design, everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone wants to feel comfortable. So I think we're going to see that rise in multifamily and hospitality. I think you're going to see a shift to that. We've always designed in the senior living space, residential in softness and scale, but acting like a commercial project. So I think, again, we'll see that as a trend in 21. We will continue to push that effort for sure. And then renovation, huge, and adaptive reuse. It's going to be a really big thing in 21, which is fine. There's a lot of capital that did not get spent in 20, and we are happy to spend it in 21. But you're going to see that renovation, I think, it rise quite a bit versus new build and adaptive reuse. We have converted several hotels to senior living. We've converted hotels to multifamily pretty successfully. But again, you have to have someone who can help you map out that program. So that is where we see design headed in 21. We are, again, located here in Atlanta, right in Marietta. We also took on a design studio. I bought an additional studio in Minnesota, so they joined our team this year in 20. And we have satellite studios in Austin, Texas, and 2 in Florida. 2020 was definitely a shake-up year. There was still a lot of good in 20. Banko was able to buy a building that we, I don't know, otherwise would have taken on. So that's really exciting. We're going to be moving there in about 9 months. So I think it's just refocusing, hitting reset, working together, having really honest conversations about what we all need 21 to look like. And again, humanizing this design process. Let's work together. Let's play nice in the sandbox. Let's do what's best for the good of the industry. And I'm really excited to see what 21 brings.